The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by the number 10, Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, it's the end of one year and the start of another. The Dukes are giving out their top 10 list of 2017 while turning the page and looking ahead for what 2018 might bring. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And this is episode 167, Dukulator 2017. Dukulator indeed. Just without the second Dukulator. But that's the name of the episode.
Right, just the first one, or the Indeed. The Indeed's not in there either.
No Indeed. Thanks to Kyle Kelly for naming episode 167. Every other week, we go over to our Board Game Geek Guild, guild number 2008, and we have a bunch of awesome guild members over there that help contribute to the Dukes on Deck thread, where we talk about different games we'll be discussing, but also there's a sweet naming contest with sweet prizes. And when I say prizes, I mean one prize, and it's bragging rights, and that's it. Sorry. So, But yeah, go check out our guild. Pretty active over there, guild number 2008. Pretty cool. So Alex, Feldmas is over. How was your Feldmas?
It was fine. I only played Castles of Burgundy, the dice game, for the Feld part of it. The rest of it was lovely, though, and got in quite a few games with the family who were kind enough to actually come out here to St. Louis and showed them the Arch and took them to some awesome restaurants, checked out City Museum, which is basically Meow Wolf if Meow Wolf were more focused on being a jungle gym instead of being an awesome art installation.
Okay, so for those that don't live in Albuquerque or Santa Fe, you should probably explain what that means.
Yep. Meow Wolf is a sort of interactive art installation. Basically, they built a house inside of a bowling alley, and inside that house, there have been portals open to other dimensions. It's this cool interactive art space, built by George R.R. Martin. It was inspired, actually, by City Museum. City Museum is here in St. Louis. It is an old warehouse building that they have turned into a crazy crawl around, explore around space. And it's crazy physical. My knees got a little bruised up from crawling around. They actually sell knee pads in the gift shop because of how much you need that kind of stuff to explore this place. It's really cool, though. It's a lot of fun. And so, yeah, got that done. And good times, plenty of games with the family. I'll talk about a few of those in a bit. But how about you, Sean? Did you have a good Feldmas?
I sure did. It was a pretty jam-packed weekend. Feldmas weekend or Christmas weekend, whichever you prefer. Made a prime rib for the first time. That was delicious.
Ooh.
It was way easier than I thought, too. So that was
What did you do to make it special? Did you have any special Sean spices?
No, I didn't have any special Sean spices. I actually had some special Berkey spices.
I was going to ask. That's exactly what came to mind. Was it Happy Mouth spice on that thing?
There was a little bit of Happy Mouth. I kind of diluted the Happy Mouth. By the way, our buddy Berkey, who's our little birdie. We call him our little birdie. Our buddy Berkey has this spice. It's called Happy Mouth spice, and it's really delicious. Put on eggs, fried chicken, all sorts of stuff. Apparently, this is a commercial for Berkey's Happy Mouth. But I put it on the prime rib, but it's a strong rub. So I kind of diluted it. And when I say diluted it, I mean I put more garlic and pepper in. It wasn't just Berkey. It was Berkey with a little Sean mixed in there too.
Everyone needs a little Berkey on their steak.
That was really good. And I made Eggs Benedict that morning. We had mimosas because that's kind of our Christmas and New Year's tradition is mimosas. So it was good. This is my now 4th year in a row where I've gotten no board games as gifts for Christmas or Feldmas.
Oh, man.
Well, no, but that's kind of by design. I tell people not to get me board games. So
yeah, I remember when I was first getting to the hobby, people were inclined to get me games, but that's a risky proposition unless you've asked me specifically what I want. It's more likely to go sideways than it is to actually go well, right?
Well, you figure when I come home just about every Wednesday with like 2 new games from Empire, or I get a Kickstarter like every other week, I'm like, nah, I'm good. What
did you get then, Sean?
I got some new casserole dishes. Raquel got me a new laptop, which she got
Okay.
at a stellar Black Friday deal, and a couple other little things here and there.
Nice.
Yep. Anything exciting for you?
Well, I can talk about games because one of the games I'm talking about was actually a Christmas gift for me from my brother. Yes. How about that transition, Sean? That was pro level right there.
That was pretty good, Alex. Pretty good.
That's 3+ years of podcasting and 6+ years in TV broadcasting at work. Man, oh man. DropMix. He got me DropMix. And for folks who don't know, this is a game brought to you by Hasbro. We don't often talk about Hasbro games on this show, but it makes sense in this case. Hasbro and Harmonix teamed up to do this one. It is a giant electronic board that you connect to your phone, but you use physical cards with RFID chips in them to play onto this board. These cards have different parts of popular songs. It might have, say, the bass line from All About That Bass. It might have the vocals from 24 Karat Magic by Bruno Mars, but it's a bunch of these popular pop, electronic, rock songs, and it's parts of the instruments. And as you put them out, it will add them into the mix. You're basically creating song mixes. You're a DJ of sorts. And as Tom Vassell reviewed this recently with his daughter, and he gave it as a toy a 9, and as a game like a 5. And I'm a little bit higher on the game, but not much. But as a toy, this is unbelievably cool, Sean. I mean, when you're putting these cards out onto the board, it feels a little magical. It feels like you're throwing something in there. The game adapts, adjusts on the fly. You can change keys. You can change beats per minute in just freestyle mode, just where you're kind of experimenting and playing around with the cards.
Okay.
Then on top of that, there is a clash mode, which is a head-to-head game. Dirt simple and very, very heavy on luck. It's fine. It does whatever, but you're also, mixes might come up as you're going through that unintentionally. And then there is a cooperative mode, party mode, where people are going to be making requests for certain types of cards, and you have to get them down on the table as quickly as you can. And that one's okay, too. It feels like sometimes you can get a little stuck and screwed over by random luck. So, yeah, the games themselves are whatever, but this is so cool as a toy. My mom didn't know any of the songs, and we sat around playing this one for a good hour. She didn't know any like maybe one of the songs that was included. And still the act of mixing things together and that kind of creation was awesome. Again, as a game, it's whatever. It's okay. One thing I'll note is Watchdog Alex is interested in how this will be received. I think the MSRP on this might be $100, which is, it might be a little lower than that, but it's up there for sure. It's been on Amazon for a lot cheaper than that. I think my brother scooped this up on a Black Friday deal for like $50.
Okay.
That comes with 60 of these song cards, and at $50, I think it's a fine purchase. In order to get expansion packs, so expansion packs of new decks of cards and new songs, whatever else, which they sell, MSRP on a 15-card pack is $15.
Okay. That seems all right.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, and it's hard because you're getting like a mix of stuff, right? Like it's not like if it's downloadable content where you could choose specifically what you're getting.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not picking the songs. You might know from having researched online what's likely to be in there, what's actually in there, and it's likely to be some things you really want and some things you're like, I could care less. I don't know this song. I don't know anything about it. I don't know how this is going to mix. I did see those on discount as well, but we'll see what the staying power is with this game. I don't know how sales have been, but to see that steep of a discount the year it releases and consistent discount may not be such a good sign. So that's DropMix. I encourage gamers to check it out, especially if you're a music fan. This does a lot of really cool things. Don't get it for the game, get it for the cool toy and experience, because for that alone, it's pretty cool. So that's DropMix.
Very cool. Well, I got to play the new Pandemic, not Pandemic Legacy Season 2, but Pandemic Rising Tide. This is from Z-Man Games. It's designed by Matt Leacock, and co-designer, this is crazy, it's Jeroen Duman, who is one of the guys that runs Splotter. So Splotter, known for its heavier titles like Indonesia, Food Chain Magnate, Great Zimbabwe, etc. So kind of a weird pairing. And this was the game that, if you remember, got announced sometime around Hurricane Irma. Is it Irma?
Harvey, I think.
Harvey. Wow. Irma. Is that like... Anyway, let's move on. It got announced around Harvey. And so there was a little bit of a PR issue because they announced Pandemic Rising Tide, and but Z-Man kind of I think they indicate they're going to donate some of the proceeds from each sale or something from pre-orders. Anyway,
right.
The game itself is it's Pandemic for sure, but it's different. It's definitely different, and it's pretty cool. So regular Pandemic, obviously, you have these 4 different viruses represented by these 4 different types of cubes that are spreading out throughout the world, throughout this world map. Here, this is about the Netherlands. This is about the lowland areas of the Netherlands that were always being threatened by the tide coming in and kind of washing it out. So the Dutch had a series of dikes throughout their history, and then eventually water pumps that they would use to prevent that from happening. So that's what you're doing here in this game. It's like the 1920s or 1930s, I think. And the game starts off with a bunch of these dikes in place throughout the Netherlands. And then there are some areas where water from the sea is going to come in. So initially, what you're doing when you're setting up the board, rather than placing these virus cubes out, you are degrading certain regions. So when you degrade a region, you remove any adjacent dikes from it. So if I'm degrading a region by 3, and maybe there's only 2 dikes there to remove, I remove 2, and now I'm going to add a water to the board, to that spot. Water is the only cube that you have. There's one type of virus, and that virus is water. So you're doing these degradations, I guess, whenever you're flipping cards over at the end of a turn. And what's really neat is that in addition to there being an equivalent of outbreaks, I think they're called floods, there's this water flow mechanic where if there is 3 water in one area, if there are any other adjacent areas that don't have dikes in between them that has a water level of 1 or lower, then you're going to add water to it till it gets to level 2, right? So one below the step that's filling it in. Really interesting. And then when you're able to cure a disease, so to speak, when you're able to engineer something, basically you're creating these engineering projects which have some sort of one-time effect or some ongoing effect, and they let you pump out water or build dikes, and it's really, really interesting. The other thing this game has are these windmills or these water pumps that can basically siphon water off from the board. And yeah, it was really good. It certainly felt pandemic-y, so to speak, but it was definitely a new take on it. I liked it a lot more than Pandemic Iberia. Wasn't a big fan of Iberia. I like it almost about the same as Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu, which I was a pretty big fan of. I thought this was really cool. Now, what we did not do was we did not play the advanced variant, which I think is where Jeroen is really coming out to play. As you know, a splatter guy. There's this population mechanism which adds now these orange cubes, and you have to kind of control the population, make sure that when floods happen, it doesn't kill them. Interested to play that, very interested to play that. So I will probably report back after I've played that, because so far from what I've seen, it doesn't feel like there's much of a Jeroen influence. Although Jeroen and Splatter are from the Netherlands, so it makes sense that they would bring him on to co-design this pandemic game about the Netherlands. But I think it's interesting. We've got Pandemic Iberia, right? So Spain and Portugal. Now we've got Netherlands Pandemic. I'm kind of curious. This is a trend that, a lot of times we'd say, oh, well, they're just milking Pandemic for all it's worth. But this one I found pretty interesting. And so I'm interested to see what other historical games they have in mind for Pandemic.
Interesting.
So yeah, pretty cool. That is Pandemic Rising Tide from Z-Man Games.
What's interesting is with Iberia and with Rising Tide, I don't know if it's the theme or what. I don't have much interest in trying either of those or any of the historically themed ones. I don't know what it is. Reign of Cthulhu I loved. Legacy I loved. And I've enjoyed some of the other Pandemic spin-offs in base Pandemic, but it's something about that theme doesn't grab me as much. I don't know why.
Yeah, I get that. And I guess it's just maybe it's a historical snapshot. I mean, I don't feel compelled to own every single Pandemic. I mean, I'm not that crazy about base Pandemic, but this was different enough. It felt much more different than Iberia felt from base Pandemic, if that makes sense. But
got it.
But I feel like if I'm going to play Pandemic Rising Tide, I'm going to do it from a mechanics perspective, or that's the desire there, not necessarily from the theme perspective. Sorry, all our friends out there in the Netherlands, but mechanically, I think it's pretty solid.
Very cool. We got in a couple more games with the family, of course, over the Christmas holiday, and there were 2 games that were big hits that were played repeatedly. One was Azul, which we talked about a lot last episode, played with anywhere from 2 players, 3 players, and 4 players. It plays differently at those counts and was a hit. We played that 6 times. However, the bigger hit, the far and away the bigger hit for the family, was For Sale. This is a Stefan Dora title that was initially released in 1997. Suzanne Sheldon got me a copy of that. Duke Suzanne got me a little tuck box copy of this not too long ago, and I hadn't played it. It had been sitting on my shelf of shame for a very long time, even though I heard, hey, you're going to really like this. And I was able to get it played at Pieces, the St. Louis Board Game Cafe, the week prior with a full 6-player count. It plays anywhere from 3 to 6. And then with the family, I didn't know how it would play at 3, but we figured I'd give it a try. And people got hooked. We played a good dozen rounds of this, mostly at 3-player, some at 4-player. In For Sale, it sort of has this 2-phase game, kind of like Biblios does. In Biblios, you're grabbing cards initially, and then you're using the cards to bid on other values at the end. Is the gist of that one? You're using the money gained to auction off a certain portion of cards. With For Sale, the first half of the game, you are auctioning off cards. And auctioning off for the order in which you pick cards ranging from 1 to 30. The higher the value, the better. How it works with the auction is, if you bid some amount, you will possibly lose some of that amount. In fact, you will lose at least some of that amount. If you bid, let's say you bid $2 and you lose the auction, you pay $1 and take back $1. If you win the auction, you pay whatever your bid is. So it has this sort of weird hybrid where bidding still costs you something as part of this. The first half of the game is buying these cards. The second half of the game is trying to sell them for the most money you can. You'll deal out a certain number of cards, and then it becomes basically a trick-taking game. You select a card. Whoever's the highest value takes the highest numbered dollar value available. Lowest card takes the lowest, et cetera, et cetera. You see who has the most money at the end, and that's the game. Sean, have you played For Sale before?
Oh, a bunch of times. I own it. It's fantastic. And I was shocked to find out you haven't played it.
Yeah, I had yet to play it, and I'm bummed I hadn't played it, because I think I'm going to suggest this in a lot of situations. It plays great with 3 and 4 and 6, and I can't imagine 5 would be too much different. It's really elegant. Rounds are fast. It's a pretty perfect filler game, really, especially in that tuck box size.
Yeah, it's really solid. I will take issue with your description of the second half as a trick-taking game, because it's a simultaneous reveal of cards. You're bidding.
Okay. Yeah. You're not following. I get what you're saying. There's no suits that you're following.
Right. It's a bid. You're bidding, and it's a blind bid. So take that.
I've been corrected on my mechanics, but I agree with the correction. Good job, Sean.
That's what I do.
Yeah, we played that a good dozen plus times, and the family was clamoring for more. We subbed in poker chips for the kind of chintzy coins that came in the tuck box version, and that was pretty satisfying to do. So poker chips tend to make a lot of games better.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, that's For Sale, a big hit, and one I expect to be playing a lot more, especially come con season when we need to find a nice filler sometime in the evening.
All right, well, the last game I'm going to talk about is Ladder 29. This was a Kickstarter fulfillment I got from Green Couch Games. I've had it for a couple months, and it just came out recently. This is designed by Ben Pinchback and Matt Riddle, who are designers that I enjoy. Fleet, a handful of other games. I think they're a pretty solid design team. And this is a ladder climbing game. The name, after all, is Ladder 29. It is a firefighting themed ladder climbing game, and so if we're going to be kind of curmudgeony on our rules and mechanics distinction, so trick taking, ladder climbing are kind of confused sometimes. So in trick taking, it's one player playing a card, everyone else following suit, more or less. In a ladder climbing game or a card shedding game, the lead player is playing cards from their hand, either a single card, a pair, triples, a straight, some kind of full house, just depends. And then people, if able, follow, and you're trying to empty your hand as quickly as possible. So that's what this is doing. So it has 4 suits, I believe from 1 to 15, And you're trying to form those singles or pairs or triples or a run of at least 4, I believe. I need to double check that. What's cool is there are some special cards, which a lot of these games have. There are the lieutenants, which are a little bit higher than 15. I think they're like 18 or something. And then there's the captain, who's 23. There's the Dalmatian that's 0, which can be used as part of a run or it can be used as a wild. So some interesting things there. What also was really cool is that every player is going to draft at the beginning of each round some sort of restriction on how they play. So, for example, it might say that you cannot play pairs this round. You just can't. But that's also going to affect what your score is going to be at the end of the round, depending on the order that you go out first in. So, for example, if I pick a restriction that's really difficult, then I'm likely to benefit much more in terms of points at the end of that round. If I pick one that's easier, it's not going to be worth as many points. So there's kind of a trade-off that you have to figure out there. This was a lot of fun. We played it at 5 players. It does go up to 5. I think I need to stop trying these kinds of games at that high player count for the first time. It was good and it was enjoyable, but it kind of dragged on a little bit with 5 players. And I think that this is probably ideal at 4. 3 would probably be pretty good. I don't think I tried it at 5, though. But I'm a big fan of ladder climbing games, games like Teach You, obviously, Chimera, which I love at 3. What's the one I like playing at 2?
Fox in the Forest?
Haggis.
Oh, Haggis. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Wait, no, that's a trick-taking game, Alex.
I know it is. I was trying to throw you off.
Yeah, go with that, Alex. Sure. So anyway, I think Ladder 29 is worth checking out if you are a fan of ladder climbing games. It does some things differently. It wouldn't necessarily replace any of those that I mentioned, depending on the player count, but it's definitely worth a look. So that is Ladder 29 from Green Couch Games. And that's going to do it for our recent plays. Let's head on over to the news desk. Essen 2017 has come and gone. And at the show, TMG debuted 3 new games, and there's an expected release pretty soon here. So you can check out Pioneer Days, which is a dice drafting game taking place on the Oregon Trail. While you pursue your strategy, you must be prepared for impending disasters such as storms, disease, raids, and famine. You can also check out Exodus Fleet. Now, Exodus Fleet features resource management and tableau building mechanisms along with a highly interactive system of role selection and bidding in which players compete to hire miners, spaceship builders, and other groups to piece together their own fleet to escape a dying Earth. Just building the ships and filling them with refugees will score you points, but making sure your ships work together may give you the advantage that you need. Finally, you could check out Harvest, which is a new game designed by Trey Chambers, who designed Argent the Consortium. This is a game where you are minding the fields of Gull's Bottom. You'll plant and fertilize your seeds, tend your crops, and utilize the various buildings at your disposal. You'll need to work smarter, not harder, as harvest season is coming to an end. Who will have the best harvest this year? Will it be you? Well, will it? So anyway, those are some great new titles coming out from TMG, and you can check out those and all their other awesome titles at playtmg.com.
All right, first up in news, it's some Albuquerque news from our friends over at Level 99 Games. Empyreal, Spells, and Steam. Sean, what's this game all about?
So, Level 99 Games, our local buddies here, they have a ton of games. There are these fighting style games, the Indines series, Devastation of Indines, Battle for Indines, things like that. Millennium Blades, which is a game that we love, which is more of that CCG metagame. So Brad decided, hey, you know what we need in the world of Indines? We need a railroad game, right? And that seems crazy. That seems like a weird choice, but knowing Level 99, knowing Brad, I suspect that this is going to be pretty interesting. And by the way, if you want to look up Empyreal Spells and Steam, you need to spell Empyreal Empyreal if you're going to look that up on BGG. So you're building railways to connect magical resources to your network, then supply them to cities around the world. Each magical resource you harvest enables new technological developments which improve your capabilities. Players will also need to fulfill contracts which build up your infrastructure and lead to new company-specific powers once completed. You compete for mana mined from the land to enable construction of more train lines. So that sounds pretty interesting. I have enjoyed greatly the one 18XX game I've played, 1846. I like Age of Steam. I like network building, route building. If this is staying more true to route building and less pick up and deliver, like I don't like the Crayon Rail games. You ever played a Crayon Rail, Alex?
I haven't. No, I've seen it played. I haven't played it myself.
Okay, so Crayon Rail games are basically, it's a bunch of dots on a map, and you are spending money that you're earning to create your company's rail lines from dot to dot, and then you're trying to deliver goods from one place to another. Not a big fan of that. I don't think this is a Crayon Rail game by any means. So I'm not sure exactly what type of rail game, but it looks like it's going to be more on the route building side, kind of like an Age of Steam. Doesn't sound like there's stocks involved like you'd find in an 18XX game, but it certainly sounds interesting. Level 99, aside from being a local company and us being friends with Brad, the stuff that they put out is innovative in a lot of ways, and I'm curious to see what they're gonna do with this game.
Yeah, it's interesting. It almost sounds like Ticket to Ride meets Terra Mystica.
What?
Right, if I'm reading that description. No?
Ticket to Ride?
Okay, sorry, maybe something a little heftier? It is route building, right? It's quintessential route building. I got my mechanics right this time, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
Yes.
Maybe. It'll probably be heavier than Ticket to Ride. I definitely agree. Hence the Terra Mystica piece of it, right? Level 99 does some really interesting stuff. Resistor even was an odd recent one. That one shot up to the top of the BGG hotness for like a week. I monitor that as part of my job over at Monochromatic Wolf Play Experiences. And it was at the top of there because they were giving away copies for free with a proper promo code. Anyway, this has nothing to do with this conversation. Switching back over, I'm curious. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued about this sort of magical train building concept. I think they're a company that can certainly execute on it. And I'll be curious to see what's going to happen.
And I should mention that Fabio Fontes, who does pretty much most of their art, whether it was for Argent, the Consortium, or the Indines games, all the Indines games really, so he's doing the art, doing the graphic design, so it'll have that consistent look and feel of other games in that world. No word on when we can expect this, but I'll hit up Brad, because I'm actually curious. I mean, if I was going to say if we want to, but more if I want to, I could probably go on over to the warehouse and probably play an early copy of this, because I'm pretty intrigued.
I might be back in New Mexico at some point.
Okay. Well, I'll probably go before then, so.
Sounds good. So that's Empyreal, Spells, and Steam. No ETA, but keep an eye out for that one. Sounds interesting. All right, next up, an odd one that I noticed. Sean, have you been tracking this Cards Against Humanity Saves America thing? Just
a little bit. I haven't been following it closely. I'm aware of it.
We're not going to get into all of this. There's one specific angle on this that I found interesting. Here's the setup for this. Basically, Cards Against Humanity decided to sell to 150,000 people. They said, hey, pay $15 and we'll do a variety of things with that money. They're going to be cool and interesting, and they're going to be geared at saving America in some form or fashion. And of course, they got the people. It's Cards Against Humanity. The game is insanely popular, and they are, quite frankly, marketing geniuses in my mind. A number of the things that they are doing with that money tend to be more political, and I don't want to get into that so much on this show. We haven't really been much of a political show in the past, don't intend to start now. But they did one really interesting thing with this. With some of that money, they bought the naming rights to a baseball stadium. So the Joliet Slammers, a minor league team, will now be playing at the Cards Against Humanity baseball place. That's the official name of the spot they are now playing at. That is insane to me that we now have a minor league ballpark named after a board game. And they were able to convince him to go with baseball place. Not stadium, not park, not arena, baseball place. I don't know, Sean. This just brought a smile to my face as someone who mentions baseball every single show in the form of Baseball Highlights 2045 First Mention. So, I don't know. I thought this was really interesting. Basically, folks who did subscribe, who chipped in that $15, got ticket vouchers, stadium blueprints, and I don't know. I find the whole thing just crazy and hilarious and fun and really cool. I don't know, Sean. How do you react to something like this? You're not a baseball guy.
Okay. They do interesting stuff, right? Every holiday season, they do interesting stuff. However, I will say that this is now the perfect time for you to introduce the prepared list of likely publishers or board games that would pair up well with existing baseball teams, either in the minors or majors. Go ahead. You have the floor, Alex. Go for it. No?
Oh, just okay. No?
It's a natural bit, right? You should plan this out.
So publishers and teams makes more sense to me. I might do this in the future, pairing up current baseball teams with current board game publishers. I don't think I could do it for all 30, though. That seems like a lot of publishers to cover with teams, and some of those comparisons would be less than flattering. So, I don't know. I might have to do just a division, but or pair up a team in a game. I don't know, Sean. It's kind of weird. You give me a weird one. Thank you. I appreciate it. But I sense a lot of this was sarcasm and telling me not to turn this into a baseball podcast either. Fair enough, Sean. Message received loud and clear.
Tell you what, let's spitball this. Next hour, this is what we're going to do. Ready?
Okay.
Go.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Fantastic. And that from Sean means it's time to move on to our Kickstarter. Hey! Dwar7s Winter is what we're looking at this time around. Sean, have you had a chance to look at this Kickstarter page yet?
Briefly, but why don't you tell people how to spell it if they're going to look it up?
Yes, it's Dwarves, spelled D-W-A-R 7-E-S, Winter. And actually, I think the E isn't there. It might be just, but the 7's important. Just remember the 7, and you'll find it just fine. So here's how it's being pitched. You built and defended your kingdom, and now that winter is here, you need to battle the harsh elements and chillingly scary monsters. Dwar7s Winter is a hand-building worker placement resource management game with tower defense elements in the gameplay. Each player wants to achieve the most victory points, but the only way to survive the winter is to work together. It's the sequel to a game called Dwarves Fall, but it's an independent standalone game with, of course, if you're going to do well on Kickstarter, you have to have this, 36 miniatures. Sean, having had a glance at this page and a glance at this game, is this something that tickles your fancy?
So it looks interesting. It looks creative. It kind of has a cutesy art. It reminds me a little bit of the same art from like a Belfort, with kind of that cartoony fantasy look. It sounds interesting, but I don't know that I'm not going to back it. I mean, that's not happening. So I'm interested to try it. I'm not going to back it in any way, shape, or form. And I had never heard of the Dwar7s, the fall version. And I feel like I didn't hear about it when it was Kickstarter. I haven't heard people if they've received the fall version, if it's been successful, well received. I don't know, but it looks interesting but it looks lighter, right? It looks like it's on the lighter end of a worker placement game. The tower defense sounds interesting, but I'm curious how it's going to work in execution.
So looking back, they've done a number of games on Kickstarter. Centauri Saga, Cosmic Pioneers, as well as Coville, the Dark Overlords. So those are some of the games they have done so far. It's a company called Vesuvius Media Limited. I have not heard of, I think I've glanced at some of the pages, but I hadn't actually heard or played any of those games. But they've all been Kickstarter successes. They've all appear to have funded from looking at what I can see. This one is funded as well, by the way. It's at about $28,000 of a $15,000 goal. It's got 17 days left in it. If you want to get in on a base level pledge, that is $50. It's the Ice Warrior pledge. So that'll get you a copy of the game as well as stretch goals and all that fun stuff. Ends January 15, 2018. Sean's not backing it, but hey, if you're interested in that kind of cutesy miniatures, anything in the mechanics sound intriguing, it's certainly worth looking at.
And should point out real quick that it's $50 for the base pledge, like you said, but shipping is going to charge after the project funds. So that's another one of those where you're not sure what shipping's going to be, which it's what it is.
Yeah, it's always risky.
More and more common.
That's Dwar7s Winter, and that is a look at the news.
So we're fortunate enough to be sponsored by Arcane Wonders, and Arcane Wonders has an impressive line of games. Not only are they the home to the Dice Tower's Essential line, but they have other fantastic games like Spoils of War, Mage Wars Academy, and Mage Wars Arena. Now, of course, they're also the home of the Dice Tower Essentials line, a line of games handpicked by Tom Vassell as essential games that every gamer should own. They started it off with the amazing Sheriff of Nottingham, plus they have the Merry Men expansion for that as well. They followed that up with games like Royals, Onitama, Speechless, and Viral. Arcane Wonders has a game for every type of gamer out there. Be sure to check out all their awesome titles over at ArcaneWonders.com.
What a wild and crazy year it has been in the Duchy, and the only way we know how to wrap it up is to give you our top 10 games of 2017. Here we go.
All right, Alex. Well, like you said, it's that time of year, and this was an interesting year. This was a year of gaming where, at least based on what I played, nothing necessarily jumped out at me. My number one and number two are kind of no-brainers now that I think about it. But at first I was like, wow, there's been a lot of really solid games. In fact, I started off initially with a list of 22 games, then got down to 15, then got down to my top 10. So it was a really solid year, but at least of what I played, nothing really was necessarily a super breakout game. Like last year had Terraforming Mars and Scythe. That wasn't the case for me this year, and I'm going to kind of explain a little bit about that here in a second. What about you? What do you think generally about 2017 so far? So far.
So far. And by the time this episode comes out, it will be over. So I had an interesting year, as I sort of referenced in that intro there, in that I haven't been together in Albuquerque with you a lot. And in past years, we will play a lot of these games together as we're reviewing them. These days, that's certainly not the case. And I was out of the country for a good chunk of the year, talking about January through mid-January through the end of April. So
14 weeks.
Yep. A good amount of that time, I wasn't playing new titles. I played some new titles during that stretch, but not a ton. I did have Gen Con and Dice Tower, and I hit Dice Tower awfully hard this past year. And I will say, looking at my list, there is actually, considering all of that, considering how weird of a year it is, there are actually a few standouts. I think if I'm looking at my list as a whole, it's a really solid list. I'd have to look back and compare it to 2016, but it came out better than I thought. Now, I didn't have as big of a pool I was picking from. I had maybe 15, 16, 17 games I was picking from to make up this list. And the 10 I have, though, I'm actually really pleased with. And the top three on this list, top five. I'll top all the lists. The list is awesome. My list is awesome. And it's a better year than I was expecting, thinking back on it. I was sort of down on 2017 in terms of gaming until I actually looked at this list. It was like, no, actually, there's some pretty solid hits here. I will say another thing that will make this list different from last year's. Last year, we had a good amount of overlap between our two lists, Sean. And this year, I actually strongly doubt we will have much overlap here. I think so. I think maybe one or two games we'll share, and I'm not sure. I know one of them, I think. Other than that, I'm not. I know two that I think are likely, maybe three. I'm curious to see where this goes, though. Maybe there's more overlap than I think, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
So there are 4 games that are not on my list because I either have not played them at all or I only played demo of them. And I suspect that they all would be very strong contenders for top 10 games. In addition, I think that 2 of them may be, and this is speculation, may be games that would have been these incredible standouts to me. So those games are Seventh Continent and Gloomhaven, both of which I kickstarted the 2nd edition, waiting on those. The other one, of course, is Pandemic Legacy Season 2. And then the newer Feld, Merlin. That's very possible that my 7, 8, 9, 10 could get knocked off the list 6 months from now.
I will say, out of those, Pandemic Legacy Season 2, I am most intrigued by. I keep hearing such good things about that. And I feel like I need to do it. I may be able to find a group out here. I just don't. Yeah, I don't know. I want to try that one, and I think it would have a great shot at the top 10. It's not on there because I haven't played it, you haven't played it, but worth mentioning because we certainly saw other guild members mention that game as well, which we'll get to in a bit.
So, Alex, any particular rules or methodology you used for your top 10?
Do I ever, Sean? Do I ever actually have a methodology? What I'll say about this is, because I know from how you do it, right? You have the index cards, and you'll go head to head with these and compare and think about it, and there's some actual rigor there. For folks who know me, I tend to be kind of the opposite, and this was no exception. I will say this is always I try and compare in my head, if I had a choice in the optimum situation for this game, which one would I rather be playing right now? Which one do I absolutely want to play? And quite frankly, any of these lists are a snapshot in time. They're going to change based on new plays, based on future plays, based on how much we like a game going forward. It's not a hard and fast list, right? Oftentimes, certainly in the past, we've done this where we've done one in December, and then we've done one in April, and restacked the list. I will say, by the way, for other honorable mentions for me, games I considered, I gave Azul a thought. I didn't end up putting it on the list. I've played it enough times to know for sure whether it should or shouldn't be on the list. It's really good, but it didn't blow me away to the point where I had to have it on the top 10.
Interesting. I thought that would be on your list.
No, it's not. It didn't quite make it. I'd say it might be my 11. It might be the one that's just off of it. Other ones, another one that's kind of in that 11-12 spot, Queen Domino. I thought Queen Domino took King Domino up to a nice level, and that one didn't quite make the cut. It was close.
Wow.
But not quite. It was edged out by something else. And then Fox in the Forest I considered as well. 2-player trick-taking game, gorgeous art, really elegant. I just don't find myself with a desire to play that one as much, and it's certainly cheap enough I could get it, but it's not on my list either, Sean. Okay, so I've knocked off 3 of the 10 that you thought were going to be on there, huh?
I thought for sure all 3 of those. Yeah.
And Cold Water Crown I considered, but didn't ultimately put on the list. That's the fishing game that has that similar one-in, one-out mechanic, set collection. One-in, one-out mechanic similar to Raiders of the North Sea. Set collection, fishing themed, really cool. Didn't quite make the list, but I thought about it. And Hanama Koji, I think, was just released. I couldn't tell if that was a 2017 one or not. It's listed on BGG as a 2013 game, but in terms of when I played it, I couldn't remember if that was 16 or 17. It should be on one of my top 10 lists. It's either the 2016 top 10 list in retrospect or on the 2017 list somewhere, but just want to give shout out to that one because it didn't get enough love on my list, maybe based on timing. So that's those are my honorable mentions.
So I actually used a program from, well, not program, it's the board game ranking engine from pubmeeple.com. So you put in a list of all the games, and then it does the head-to-head thing for you, and then spits you out your list. So my quick honorable mentions, Hentes, which I thought was going to get there, but as I was doing the head-to-head, I'm like, no, man, it's just not beating out some of these other games. Indulgence from Restoration Games, Downforce from Restoration Games, really enjoyed both of those a lot. And then probably the biggest upset was Yokohama. Yokohama was my number 11. And I thought for sure, I mean, I love the game. I think it's fantastic. But yeah, not quite making it to the list. So that's how I did mine. All right, well, let's get this started, Alex. Why don't you lead us off?
Number 10.
My number 10, and I mentioned this designer earlier in the show, oddly enough, Stefan Dora. And he came out with a game this year, a little game called Valletta. Valletta, Sean. This is one we actually played together a little bit before I left New Mexico and gave you maybe a bit of a different spin on it. This is a building, resource collection, hand management kind of game at its core. You are playing cards from hand. You have a certain number of actions to gain resources, build buildings, try and then later convert those buildings. You can upgrade them, turn them into better points. It is stellar. It plays really smoothly. It has this cool block building element where you're kind of trying to build in clumps and get discount benefits. You're trying to, when you build a building, you get an ability card associated with that building. And so as a result, your hand evolves in different ways. You can build a bigger deck, a thinner deck. But it has a lot of what I liked in a game like Rococo, which has that hand management element, but in a more streamlined fashion and does some really cool things. I think Z-Man knocked it out of the park this year in general. There's another Z-Man game also on my list. And this is a great one. Mike Fitzgerald first showed me this one, and I'm glad he did. It's really cool. That's Valletta. Sean, was this one in consideration at all for you? I know you liked it better on another play. Was this one you thought about?
Yeah, no, it was in my top 22. It was in that initial list. It didn't survive the first cut because I realized, man, I only really played it once. So I really enjoyed that play. But I'm like, yeah, I can't quite consider this as part of my top 10 of the year. I think it's really solid. I'm looking to pick up a copy, and I'm looking forward to more plays of it. We played it 4. I think I'd like to try it 2 or 3.
What's interesting about my list is there are some of these that I have only played. If I'm looking at this, I think there are 2 games on this list that I've only played once, but the experience was so powerful that it had a good position on the list. So I understand that rule is eliminating things, and I've used that in the past. But I think based on just how scant some of my experience was in terms of a lot of the gaming time taken out and in different shuffling, I wasn't as hard and fast with that rule. But I totally
fair.
understand that rule. Makes perfect sense.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. So that's Valletta, my number 10.
All right, my number 10, I suspect, is going to be significantly higher on Alex's list. Any guesses just from that
Flip
revelation
ships.
alone?
Flip ships.
Yeah, it's totally flip ships. So this is a game that came out from Renegade Game Studios. It is a dexterity game. It is now my go-to dexterity game. You have these little ship discs, and you have this oncoming onslaught of these alien cards. They move down a certain amount every round, kind of like Space Invaders, and you're flicking these little disc ships, trying to hit them with some cool abilities. This game was a ton of fun, an absolute ton of fun, and it's my go-to dexterity game. I don't own it. This is, in fact, the only game on the list that I don't own, but it's really good. I really like this, and I suspect you'll have a lot more to say about it in a little bit here. Or actually, not in a little bit, probably in a long while.
Yeah. Hold that thought. I'm holding that thought.
Okay. So that is my number 10, Flip Ships.
Number 9.
All right, my number 9 is a game that we reviewed a couple months ago. It is a cooperative game. It is Spirit Island. So Spirit Island, you are playing these island spirits with the assistance of the native inhabitants. You are trying to repel these foreign invaders, these conquistador types that are coming onto your island. And it uses this really interesting card play where there's these fast and these slow actions. There's so many decisions to make that it's really hard for someone to alpha game because there's just so many options an individual player has. And I really like that it kind of deals with that alpha gamer issue that way. You kind of have to speak in some broad strokes, like, well, I could deal with these invaders over here. I can deal with this building or whatever. I played a bunch of this when we reviewed it. The base game. There's still different variants that I haven't played, which I'm really excited to try out. This is kind of my go-to, Meteor co-op game. I think it's just a really solid game. This is from published by Greater Than Games, right?
Yes, it is. Another fine St. Louis company.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think it's pretty solid. I'm guessing it's not going to be on your list, Alex?
Oh, no. Yeah. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I
not a chance.
Think so.
No, I didn't. I just didn't enjoy the play well enough. I think if I were talking about top 10 most thematic games, it would make the cut on that front. It's thematic and variable, and the replayability is most definitely there. I just didn't have fun with it. It's just not my kind of game at the end of the day.
Yeah. So that's my number 9, Spirit Island.
Very good. My number 9 is a cooperative game, and this was my favorite of the Spiel nominees. It didn't win. Magic Maze, Sean. Magic Maze. This game has come out more often than I would have expected it to. And I, to be honest, with that campaign that comes with the game, I haven't gotten past maybe the 3rd or 4th level of it. But in terms of the different groups this has played well with and the brilliance of the core mechanics of this, I really dig this. The theme of this is insane. You're basically fantasy-themed heroes, dwarves and paladins and elves and whatnot, breaking into a shopping mall to steal back your weapons and escape. It's an insane theme, but it plays really, really well. All of these 4 characters, everyone in theory is controlling all of them. I might be able to move them up. Sean, you might be able to move them down. Another person might be able to move them left. Another person right. Someone controls these escalators that can go up and down. Someone controls whether you're searching and finding things. It is madcap fun, and it's the loudest quiet game I think you'll ever play. Because it's you're just sitting there like move this thing, and there's this knocker piece that comes with the game, a brilliant component that you're just like tapping in front of someone like, hey, move this thing. It is frustrating fun, if that makes any sense. It's real time, it's cooperative, and it's just so enjoyable. Every time I've gotten this one to the table, there have been laughs after the play, and people tend to be really engaged. And I love when a game can give you that kind of an experience. So. That's Magic Maze, my number 9. Sean, what were your thoughts on that one? I'm trying to remember.
It's fine.
All right.
I played it again. I've actually played it again about 2 weeks ago at Empire. And yeah, it's enjoyable. It's cool. It's pretty innovative. But yeah, it doesn't do a whole lot for me.
I think it basically kills off Escape Zombie City for me. I wouldn't ever go back and play any of those, Escape Curse of the Temple or Zombie City or any of those after having Magic Maze. If I have Magic Maze available, it's going to beat that out every single time.
That's fair.
And it fills a nice hole in the collection. So that's Magic Maze.
Number 8.
My numero ocho, number 8, is a Daryl Andrews game that has gotten a lot of love, and I think for a pretty good reason. It's a game called Sagrada. This is a dice drafting game where you are building stained glass windows with certain placement rules that you have to follow. There are powers that you can activate over the course of the game, but don't have to. Those powers change game to game. You, at the start of the game, choose what kind of window you're going to build, whether you want to build something more difficult or easier. This is a gorgeous-looking, incredibly elegant, ton of fun dice drafting game. It has amazing presence. It plays really fast. The turns move really quickly. It has this snake-style draft that in some contexts, right, in something like Grand Austria Hotel, can slow the game down or be tricky. Not in this case. In this case, it moves rapid fire really fast, and the game looks stunning on the table, Sean. I don't think I can say that enough. It looks really good. Daryl did a great job with this game. I probably should get this one for my collection. I don't have it yet, but I enjoy this one a lot. So that's Sagrada, my number 8 game. I can't remember. Have you played this one yet, Sean?
I have not. No, surprisingly. It's something I want to play, but just haven't gotten to the table. Now, let me ask you this, though. How does it compare in your mind to Role Player?
Oh, interesting. They are different games. Sagrada is a more streamlined, more elegant version. It's dealing with, I guess, the physical placement a little bit more. Role Player has a bunch of these elements mixed together, right? You have the shop, the different weapons or abilities and effects you can add to your character, and then you also have where are you placing this dice and how are you manipulating and moving it around. This has less of the dice manipulation going on. It's still there, and it's more of this puzzle of how can I best get what I need to score more points. The elegance of that game has me like it a little bit better than Role Player, but I can also understand how thematically it's more appealing to someone who likes Role Player. I think there's certainly room in a collection for both. They do different things. They scratch different itches. But if I'm teaching, say, a newer crowd or want to play something that's easier to teach, Sagrada definitely fits the bill more. So, yeah.
All right. So continuing on for my number 8 with that Spanish name theme, my number 8 is Azul, Spanish for blue.
Ah, okay.
So pretty surprised this didn't make your list, Alex. I mean, it's a lighter gateway game that somehow managed to find its way onto my list, yet didn't make its way on your list. I find that curious, very curious. So I talked about Azul last week in recent plays, and I've played it a number of times since then. I've probably played this 6-7 times since it came out, and it's fantastic. It uses a drafting mechanism where you're drafting types of tiles from different pools of tiles. You're trying to arrange them in such a way that you are creating these patterns. It is an incredibly tension-filled game. Especially at player counts, it seems like it's really, really mean. And it's just great. It's a great gateway game. I feel like this is going to become an evergreen title, kind of like a Splendor. It's really good. I mean, I'll play this over Splendor any day. Different styles of games, but as far as that kind of entry level, light gameplay, really smooth mechanics, kind of elegant design, this is becoming a go-to. I think it's really solid. So I'm so surprised this is on your list.
It was very close. I certainly considered it, and I played it enough to talk about it. It wasn't for lack of plays. Just like you, I've played it maybe 6 or 7 times. And I do like it a lot, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. It's a little easier to teach than something like Splendor, though it doesn't necessarily. I don't know. It's easier to teach. It's incredibly elegant. It looks great on the table. Plan B did a fantastic job with the production. I like it better than, say, Century Spice Road, for instance, which is another one that they put out this year. That is very accessible, a lot of fun as a game. So I enjoy it a lot, and just for whatever reason, that visceral feeling of fun, that visceral feeling of, man, I have to get this to the table, is less there, but I agree with you that I think it's going to have a lot of staying power. I think this is going to be a go-to game for a lot of people. It's already gotten a lot of buzz and a lot of love, and I think for very good reason. So I totally understand it being on anyone's list, and it was very close to making mine. There were just some other things I liked better over the course of the year that I just had these oh, this is so cool kind of moments with. And this one I liked a lot, but it just didn't quite click on that level for me.
And it also has, kind of like Splendor, that table presence and that tactile appeal, because it has really nice the tiles, right? Because the tile pieces are really nice. They look cool. They feel good, kind of like Splendor's chips. But anyway, so that is my number 8, Azul.
Number 7.
My number 7 is just a little bit heavier than that, and it's a capstone game. It is the Ruhr story of coal trading. And this is, so this is kind of breaking some rules in some ways. This is technically a second edition of a game that came out a couple years ago, but first time it was really available to me, first time I played it. And again, this edition is listed on BGG as a 2017 release. This is designed by Thomas Spitzer. And I think I mentioned this last week too. I have played it once since then at 2 players. It's good at 2. It's not, I don't think it's great at 2. I really liked it at 4. It's probably fine at 3. And this is a game where you are navigating your coal boat up and down the Ruhr River in Germany, trying to pick up coal and then deliver it to different types of places. Those different places where you deliver it are going to kind of check off some boxes for you. And when you check off certain boxes and certain patterns, it's going to give you access to new abilities or give you some one-time bonuses. And there's just some really interesting ways that you're building your technology tree, so to speak, that I think adds to a lot of replayability here. The other cool thing is that in the Ruhr, you also get a second game, the Ohio River. And I still haven't played that. It has a lot of the same base mechanics, but it completely changes things up quite a bit. I am really enjoying this as one of the heavier games that I got to play this year. I think that I don't know what you're going to think about this. I know you're so on Hoshball Connect. This is the second game in that Coal trilogy, Hoshball Connect being the first. I like this a lot better than Hoshball Connect, and I'm very interested in playing this game some more. It's a bit of a heavy rules teach. It could take some time, especially at 4 players, but it's just really solid. So great job to Capstone for bringing that one over.
Nothing you said in any of that has me think, yeah, I gotta try this one. A bit heavy on the rules teach alone, I think, is something that makes it tricky for me.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my number 7, The Ruhr, a story of coal trading.
My number 7 is an addition or a twist on a game that took it from being a game that I liked, was a staple of a lot of people's collections, and is a gaming evergreen title, similar to what we think Azul probably will be. And it took it and it made it a game that I actually actively will suggest and want to break to the table. And that's Codenames Duet. Codenames Duet, Sean. I'm not a huge Codenames guy. I've talked about it feels like there's too much downtime in the game. It can be a lot of fun, and that puzzle is really cool, and trying to come up with clues can be good, but there's just too many players not doing anything for too much of that game for my liking. I appreciate what you say about that, it having that flexibility where you can throw in people on the fly and it doesn't matter. I get that. For my money, it's good, but it's not great. Codenames Duet, on the other hand, is great because it takes out all that downtime and it makes it so you are always doing something in that game. You're either coming up with a clue or trying to guess someone else's clue. It takes this Codenames competitive model and makes it cooperative in a really fun, engaging way, and it is fantastic. It's a great game to play with another person. I think it's one of the best couple games of the year, certainly, and one of my go-to 2-player games in the right situation, Sean. I think it takes. I have a lot of fun coming up with clues in Codenames. I like that brain burn, but I like being able to do it more often, and I like it in this one-on-one setting. It doesn't work as well for me in the bigger group. In this case, in this package, it's fantastic, and it has a well-deserved place at number 7 on my list. For me, it's better than any other version of Codenames that's out there. Are you as high on this one as I am, Sean?
I don't know. Let's wait and see.
Okay, it's higher on the list. Fair enough. All right. Well, that's my number 7, Codenames Duet.
Number 6.
All right, my number 6 is a game that I played under the most unusual circumstances of any game I have played this entire year, because I played it with the designer a whole bunch. That is Charterstone from Stonemaier Games, designed by Jamie Stegmaier, who, of course, folks know from Scythe, which was our number one game of last year, unanimous number one game of last year. Yep. We also love Viticulture. Sean loves Euphoria a little more than I do. And Between Two Cities, we're very divided on. So Stonemaier has consistently, though, put out stuff that we tend to like a lot. And Charterstone, for me, is no exception. This game, if you don't think of it as a legacy game, if you think about it as a game-building game, it will put you in the right mindset to enjoy what this game is, which is a Euro game that changes over time, provides enough twists to have it interesting, but at its core is a game with some simple core mechanics, right? It's and I don't want to talk too much about this for fear of spoilers, but it takes fairly simple mechanics and adds different card types and other things that create a pretty robust experience, and one that I was up and down on, right? I was really high for the first couple of games on it, and then it dropped a bit as I had to process some of what it was throwing at me. But once I processed it, the game soared for me. It is really well done and a design accomplishment that I think is hard to achieve. It doesn't quite get to a 6 on the Ducal scale for me, but it's really high up there. I thought it was really solidly done, and I'm curious to see what the overall reception, the long-term reception is for this, because it's pitched as a legacy game, but definitely feels very different from Pandemic Legacy. I'd ask you about this one too, Sean. I'm not sure if it's on your list, though. My guess is it might be.
No comment.
Anyway, that's my number 6, Charterstone. Great job, Jamie. Excited to see what's coming in the year ahead.
So for me, continuing on the theme of heavier games, my number 6 is the newest Vital Lacerda game from Eagle Gryphon Games, and that is Lisboa. Oh, Lisboa. So beautiful. Such a rough rules teach. So counterintuitive, yet oddly intuitive in other ways. I don't know. It's kind of a mess in my head how I reconcile those things together. Lisboa is a historically based action selection game where you are trying to rebuild the city of Lisboa, Portugal, after this earthquake and tsunami and fire and just all this terribleness. And you're playing cards from hand. They're kind of multi-use cards in that you can tuck them above or below your board. You could discard them to get certain types of actions. And everything is just so interconnected. It is an elegant game once you figure out what the heck is going on in this game, because because of all those moving pieces, it's just kind of difficult at the top end. Where this fits in my other Lacerda games, I like it better than Kanban. I think I like it better than The Gallerist, and Venus, I'm not sure where it stands exactly, but Lisboa was really solid. And I think, Alex, that if you could find someone who knows the game really well and will put up with your attitude while they're teaching you, then I think that you will come around to like this game as much as you like the other Lacerda games that you've played. So,
and I will say this, once I can get through the rules teach on a Lacerda game, I actually tend to enjoy them. But the rules teach is the big hump to get over. I do know someone out here in St. Louis who may have the patience and skill to properly teach me this game. So Josh, if you're listening, which I don't think you do, but if you are, well, let's give this one a shot. So that's, yeah. I had a thought this one might be higher on your list. I'm not surprised it's on your list. I just thought it might be higher.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what's above this.
Well, let's find out then, Alex. That was my number 6, Lisboa.
Number 5.
So, Alex, my number 5 is a game that you have said is not going to be on your list. It was one of your runners-up, which was quite surprising to me. And then surprising again that it's actually this high up on my list. We're now in 1 through 5. So number 5 is The Fox in the Forest.
Oh, wow.
The 2-player trick-taking game from Renegade Game Studios. Alex, I love trick-taking games. And this is a 2-player game, 2-player trick-taking game that really works. It is really good. I played this for the first time with Suzanne Sheldon at Dice Tower Con while we were waiting in line for the flea market. And I've played this a number of times since. And man, it is just so good. It's just amazing that a trick-taking game can work with 2 players. And I think the way they do it is they minimize the number of suits. There's only 3 suits instead of what you normally expect to see, like 4 suits. It is fewer ranked cards. I think it's 1 through 11 or 1 through 13. I think 1 through 11.
I should know this. I taught this game at Gen Con. I think it's 1 through 11.
Yeah, I think it's 1 through 11. And then all of the odd numbered cards have some cool special ability that kind of throws things for a loop, and you have to be ready for that, play around it, whatever. I think it's a fantastic 2-player game. And the very fact that it can make a trick-taking game work at 2 players, I think is just really excellent. And it really reinforces the fact that I love trick-taking games. I really do. And I'm just really impressed with what this one has done. And I'm shocked. I'm just shocked it's not on yours. I really thought it was going to be.
I certainly considered it. It wasn't one I forgot about, and it was just off the list. Just off the list. Really, really good, as you said. Amazing what you can do with, I think, 33 cards that come in the game. And yeah, a nice design accomplishment to see a 2-player trick-taking game work as well as this one does. And I probably need to get this one in my collection. I don't have it in my collection, but I probably need to buy it. It's available on Amazon now. And the game in general probably should get a little more love than it does. It's a nice value, beautiful looking game, and Renegade did a great job with this one. So that's 2 of your games on your list, Renegade Game Studios games. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's my number 5, The Fox in the Forest.
Excellent. My number 5 is a game that also involves animals. Sean, can you guess offhand what game that might be?
Is it Fabled Fruit?
No, it's not Fabled Fruit.
Okay, I'm like, what?
It's Baron Park.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of the games that violated my play only once rule, the Sean play only once rule, I guess. And then I only played this one once. I played this one in Colorado earlier this year, and I got to tell you, Sean, it absolutely killed Cottage Garden for me. It didn't kill Patchwork for me, but it works so well at 2 to 4 players. There's no way I could consider bringing Cottage Garden or getting that in my collection anymore. Phil Walker Harding, the designer of this one, did an amazing, amazing job. This is a game where you are building a park for bears, different kinds of bears, and effectively using that sort of jigsaw-y patchwork kind of mechanic with these polyomino shapes to fill in your board. The game itself is, and this is a factor in a lot of games that end up on my list, incredibly elegant, very streamlined, does what it does very well. Takes that drafting a tile mechanic and takes it to another level. It has a little bit more to it than Patchwork does, not much more. Looks great on the table, and it's just stellar. This is another one I probably need to buy because it of just how well it works, Sean. You have played this one for sure, right?
Yeah, no, it's really good. Same thing for me. Kills Cottage Garden, doesn't kill Patchwork. Wasn't really in consideration, but I think it's solid.
Very nice. So that's Baron Park, my number 5 game of the year.
Number 4.
So my number 4 game of the year may actually be a 2016 title, which I just discovered looking it up now, which shows you the disadvantages of having a less rigorous system than Sean has. But hey, it was new to me in 2017, and it felt like a 2017 release, so why not? The game is First Class. First Class. This is a game where it's taking the Russian railroads, German railroads mechanic and sort of chaining together things and different things popping off in different ways, and puts it in a simpler form and in a form that I really, really, really dig. And I'm feeling so bad that this is a 2016 release. I am losing my train of thought, no pun intended, very, very quickly on this game. I have not played all of the modules in this one just yet, Sean, but there's a lot of replayability baked into this one. I love how it handles card drafting, where you'll draft a certain amount, and then once there are only a couple of cards left in that row, it kills off the entire row. It's another one of these that just it clicks together in a cool way. There's multiple paths to victory. I have enjoyed every play I've had of this more and more, and I need to play with the rest of the modules, but for now, it holds a solid spot at number 4 just because of how dang much I've loved this game every single time I've played it. So that's first class. Z-Man Games did a fantastic job, apparently in 2016, not 2017. So, take my list with a grain of salt. That's my number 4 game.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, my number 4 appeared earlier on Alex's list, and that is Charterstone from Stonemaier Games. Now, let me tell you this, though. I suspect that this will likely fall off my list. Once I've played through a second time with Raquel and Mariah, I have the recharge pack ready to go. It doesn't, it's cool, and it's good, and it's great, and it's fun. I like the mechanics. I like the art style. I like everything about this game, but I don't have the incredible aha moments or experiences that I had in a game like Pandemic Legacy, where Pandemic Legacy will hold its place in my heart, I think, better than Charterstone will. I think Charterstone's a fantastic design accomplishment, but that being said, it's not going to necessarily be something I look back on and be like, oh, remember that one time in Charterstone? I'm not going to do that. But as far as the level to which I have enjoyed it this year, and recognizing that design achievement in creating this legacy Euro game, I think it's fantastic. So it definitely has earned this number 4 spot on my list.
That's interesting because you think about a game like Pandemic Legacy, right? And Pandemic Legacy, we didn't even play through the full campaign of that dang thing. And yet it's still held up because of some of those big, crazy, oh my goodness, did that just happen kind of moments.
Right.
And Charterstone, you're right, doesn't have those same kinds of moments. But the play experience of it, to me, I don't know if it's a better game or not, but I enjoyed the heck out of that play experience. Sure. And it's weird to me that it wouldn't have that kind of the same kind of staying power. I'm not sure I quite feel the same way. And what's especially odd to me about that is it's designed to have that staying power. It's designed to be something that you can play after the campaign, whereas Pandemic Legacy is not. So it's really interesting that you have it this high, but know it's going to drop off.
I mean, I don't know that it's going to drop off. I suspect that it'll drop off. And we talked about it. We haven't played the game, well, at least I haven't. I don't think you have either. Played a one-off game of it after you've completed the board, right? And I don't know that that's something I want to do. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to try it at some point eventually. I just don't know. But hey, don't give me guff here, Alex. It's still number 4 on my list of the year. So
I know it's just kind of a contradictory number 4. By the way, in thinking about my number 4, I think the best way to handle this is imagine everything I said up to that point has moved up a spot and then put Azul in at number 10. Azul gets the number 10 spot. So Barron Park gets bumped up to 4. All right. Yeah, it's all solved. I solved the problem, Sean.
Can you do me a favor and just withdraw all your criticism of my choice for number 4?
Absolutely not. Under no circumstances. Hang on, I'm gonna put a little asterisk on this list we're typing out in the Anyway, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Sean.
Okay.
So,
well, that's my number 4, Charterstone.
Number 3.
All right. Well, my number 3 also appeared earlier on Alex's list, and it is Codenames Duet. Yeah, Alex, I agree with you. This is probably my preferred way to play Codenames. I do like regular Codenames more than you do, and I'm happy to play it just about any time. Codenames Duet, oh man, it is so good. It is so good. Like you said, always being on, always either giving the clues or receiving the clues is really solid. It's just really good. And I've got a copy. Raquel and I have played a bunch of times. Raquel and I, by the way, are terrible at Codenames Duet. We are terrible. It's quite humorous, actually, how bad we are at it. But I loved Codenames when it first came out. It's still a 6 for me. And this is probably it's a 6 as well. I mean, it is a great 2-player game. This was a good year for 2-player games, I think. So that is my number 3, Codenames Duet.
A stellar choice. I'm surprised to see it that high, but then again, knowing how much you like Codenames Base, to hear that you like this one that much better, maybe it's not such a surprise. Sense. Yeah. It does make sense, actually. This one makes more sense to me, oddly enough. Well, Fox and the Force makes sense, too, because it's trick-taking. I don't know. Your list is a bit of a mystery to me this year, whereas these next 3, at least 2 of them, I think you'll know. And let me see if you can guess now. So you know Flip Ships is one of the 2. What do you think is the other game that's likely to be on my list that I haven't mentioned yet?
That's a good question, because I was actually just thinking that, and I kind of came up with a blank.
Oh, man, you're going to be kicking yourself for this one. My number 3 game of the year is Near and Far.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
From Red Raven Games. Yeah, right? Right? Come on, Sean.
Yeah.
This was on my top 10 of all time, I think. Yeah, I think it was.
Why not?
Yeah, I don't know. My memory is clearly not working all that well today anyway. So Near and Far is designed by and with art by Ryan Lockett, who did Above and Below and did Islebound and a whole bunch of other really awesome games. Near and Far, for me, combines those fantastic story elements you get in Above and Below, which I played that game for the story alone because of so many delightful moments I had in that game. And it takes the actual gameplay backing that up and improves on it. Makes it work really, really well. And so many different ways to play. You can play it in a campaign mode. You can play this one in a character mode. You can play this one just as a one-off, one-shot game. And there's plenty of cool stories for you to experience and enjoy. With the addition of, they have this deck that can add replayability where you can kind of tell your own stories. The gameplay itself is a good amount of fun. The art on the game is gorgeous, and as a whole package, it's one I fell in love with from first game. I love the stories that Ryan tells. I love the worlds that he creates, and this one was no exception for me. This one's not on your top 10 list, if I'm not mistaken, right, Sean? You kind of soured on this one a bit?
Man, everyone thinks I didn't like the game after that review. I do like the game, but I'm not crazy about it. No, it's not on my top 10 list, and it didn't quite make that initial list either. I don't dislike the game. I think it's good. I think it's fun.
Man, why you got to hate on Ryan Lockett?
I like more of his games than you do. So there.
That's probably true. Because The Ancient World's another one from him that you definitely like better than I did. So fair enough. So my number 3, Near and Far. Nice job, Ryan. Nice job, Red Raven Games. Really dig this one. I actually got this one, by the way, for my brother for Christmas, which I've heard he's enjoyed so far, and curious to hear how that one gets received. So that's Near and Far, which I don't own a copy of myself, but I got for my brother for whatever reason.
So hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
So this is not your top 10 games of the year. This is your top 10 games that you still need to buy.
No, wait, let me look at this list. Hang on. Not counting First Class, because that's not a thing. Azul is coming in. I've got Azul on order. My folks got it for me for Christmas, so Azul is going to get here. It's just not here yet. So that's now on my list based on the First Class snafu, the First Class fiasco of 2017. I don't own Magic Maze. I don't own Valletta. I don't own Sagrada. I do own Codenames Duet. I don't own Charterstone. Don't own Barren Park. I do own, however, the top 3 games on my list. Oh, wait, no, top 2 games on my list. Apologies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't buy a lot of games, Sean. Even out here, I don't buy a lot of games.
Even your top games of the year, you don't buy them.
I own my top 2 games of the year, and that's good enough for me, Sean. That's my number 3, Near and Far.
Number 2.
My number 2 game of the year is a latecomer and a late surger, a late addition to this list. How late of an addition, Sean? I played this for the first time the night before recording this podcast. That game is Fog of Love. Oh my God. Fog of Love is freaking amazing, Sean. Unbelievable. And if we hadn't trimmed down recent plays, I would have told folks earlier in the episode how amazing Fog of Love is. This is a game that I backed on Kickstarter a while back. It is sold exclusively in the US through, of all places, Walmart.com. It is meant to be a romantic comedy board game. It's published by Hush Hush Projects, designed by Jacob Yaskov. And this is going to be a bit of an extended section because we haven't talked about this game on this show yet. And I got to tell you, Sean, it is killer. Basically, you have two players playing as a fictional couple, one half of a fictional couple who meet in some form or fashion, either on a date or however it goes. And then you're playing through their relationship, through different situations that come up. You can play as 2 men, 2 women, man and woman, whatever the mix is. There are blue and pink colors in the game, but they're not actually correspondent to genders, and you can play with gray tile trays. So how the game works is you will have a chapter will come up that will set up a certain amount of story, and then you'll play cards back and forth. Some of them will require you and your partner to both give input on a situation. So it might be, hey, I want a trip to Italy. Can we go? And the options might be something like, I can't take the time off, or I can just take a week, or hey, let's go for a month. I can always find another job later, or whatever the case might be. And you'll both pick it secretly, and then depending on how you match or what the answers are, you'll get certain relationship points that will come up. There are things that you can play, secret cards that you'll have face down in front of you. Last night I was playing as Hank, the security guard. That was my profession. The traits I was given publicly were I had nerdy glasses and a booming voice. Secret traits, man, I'm all over the place with this, Sean, but it's because I'm so excited to talk about this thing. You have these trait cards that dictate how your character reacts in certain situations, and you want to have either a shared relationship balance in certain parts on a bunch of these different criteria. Things like gentleness in the relationship. So you're either really gentle or really rough and cocky and arrogant. So my character, for instance, was cocky. I was looking for a score that was on the rougher side. My character was insecure, so he was looking for something higher on the sensitivity side. So he was cocky, but he couldn't handle criticism. And then he was really high on the innocent scale. So my character was Hank the security guard who believes in Santa and doesn't think you have the evidence to prove him wrong.
Okay.
I rambled for a good amount of time there, Sean. Sorry about that. I am super excited to play this game more. We just played through... Oh, by the way, this is a game that, unlike this War of Mine, which I picked up this year and is not on my list, this is a game that promises to teach you as you play, and it does it really well. It has these tutorial cards set up and seated in the deck in a brilliant way that as certain cards come up, they explain how the cards work and how the mechanic works. I got this in, and I gotta tell you, Sean, everything about this game, from the production to the experience of it to this sort of blend of role-playing mixed with an actual game, this sort of kind of competitive, kind of cooperative game that plays out a relationship, man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, is this good. And there's a chance this could get to number one of the year for me if I had a chance to play it more than once. But one play of this was enough to know I liked a taste of what I got here, Sean. And I am not talking about this in a coherent enough way, as I tend to when I get really excited about stuff. But, man, I think we need to review this. But I'll give it a preemptive 6 off of one play. It comes with a bunch of expansions built in with the Kickstarter edition, so... It has Paranormal Romance Part 1 and Part 2. It has Fights with the In-Laws, which provide all of these other scene cards, which set up some interesting and fun situations. I was laughing. I was repeatedly delighted by this game. Again, the production is top-notch, and seriously, for $50, which is what they're selling at from Walmart, the value on this is insane. The value on this game is unbelievable. Sean, you have to play this with Raquel. You have to play this with Raquel. Oh my God, you have to play this with Raquel.
Okay. All
right, I'm done. I'm done talking. It's my number 2. It's really good, and I'm really excited about it, and I have to play this more. Have to.
All right. By the way, when you're really excited, you're really excited, and you have to, and it's super, and oh man.
You've heard this before. This isn't the first time I've had this kind of reaction to a game. But when I do, I know it, and I will sing this game's praises because it's that good. It's the best Kickstarter project I've ever backed, Sean. I have not backed a better Kickstarter project than this one.
Okay. All right. Well, let's head over to my number 2. Alex, any thoughts on my number 2 and number 1?
I have not a clue. I'm actually completely and totally and utterly lost with your list. Maybe I'm just out of tune. I don't know my Sean well enough, but
nope.
Yeah. I thought Lisboa had a shot at one of these top 2 spots.
All right. Well, my number 2 was an interesting choice because I tend to avoid putting this kind of game on a top 10 list of all time, but man, it's good. There is some precedent. Last year I did put Arkham Horror LCG on my top 10 last year. So this year I'm going to put the new Legend of the Five Rings LCG from Fantasy Flight Games. I love L5R. That's the shorthand, Alex, in case you were confused there. L5R. So I played the base game when it first came out in like 95. I played it again in the early 2000s. I played it again 2008, 2009 when I was in law school, and I loved it. I always loved L5R. I think it's fantastic. When I look back favorably on my CCG days, Magic, Netrunner, and L5R are just the trifecta of CCG goodness for me. So I was very excited. This has been one of my most anticipated games of the year. In fact, it probably was my most anticipated game of the year. When I found out that Fantasy Flight was going to be getting the license for this, I was just like, oh, I can't wait. So this came out at Gen Con, didn't get it at Gen Con, but then picked up the 3 core sets, which is that Fantasy Flight LCG model. Picked up my 3 core sets, and they've released the first 6 expansion packs since those core sets came out, and I just love it. I love this game. It is so difficult. It is such a nuanced LCG game. There is such a subtlety to the play. It's tough. It is a tough game. You would absolutely hate this game. I think that to the extent that you like a game like Netrunner, but don't enjoy the deck construction aspects of it, I think that this has an even more nuanced style of play than Netrunner has. And I think it would be difficult for you to just kind of come in and play someone who's experienced in this game, because the skill level differential, I think, will lead to some pretty nasty results there. But I'm really enjoying this. I enjoy that the fact that, you've got all these different clans to play from that are a completely different style of play. And what's great is this game was made to be an LCG, because when you were playing as a CCG, you had these like 7 to 9 different clans, and it was so hard to get the cards you needed for that clan. It's like you're playing Magic. I think I've said this before. It's like you're playing Magic and you're playing a monocolored deck, just a blue deck or a red deck, and you need to open up just a bunch of blue cards. Well, now instead of 5 colors of Magic, there's 7 to 9 colors, so to speak. And you would trade, right? You would just trade with friends and be like, okay, I'm going to give you all of my crab cards. I'm going to give you all my scorpion cards, and you're going to give me all your lion cards and whatever. And now you get everything you need in this LCG format. And I'm just loving it. A game that is not on my list is Star Wars Destiny. It is a fantastic game, but I think it's hurt by the fact that it's not doing that LCG model. It's doing that CCG random pack distribution model. I think the gameplay is fantastic, but it has killed the players in this town. I mean, or not actually killed them. You look so excited right there.
I think you just admitted some flaws in the CCG model, Sean Ramirez.
No, I think primarily the problem is that if you are going to play a CCG competitively, enthusiastically, it is a lifestyle game, and you can't do that and be an avid board gamer. I mean, you can. I'm saying you can't, but it's certainly difficult. Even keeping up with an LCG and being an avid board gamer is difficult. But a CCG or that random distribution of content is that much harder. I mean, certainly if I wanted to stop board gaming, stop the podcast, and go back to playing competitive Magic, sure, I can do that, and I'm fine with the distribution model. But trying to kind of balance all these different aspects of the hobby is a little bit tough. So it's not an inherent problem with the CCG model. It's if you're trying to do a little bit of everything. You can't do it. You can't be a jack of all trades, Alex, and master of none.
But in this game, with so many in this hobby, with so many amazing games available, Sean, isn't it an inherent problem that you have to focus on just one game?
No, I don't think. No, absolutely not. I mean, yeah, clearly it's a problem because Magic is so successful right now. No,
Fair.
It's not a problem. I mean, there is a certain richness. I mean, Alex, can you remember when we only had 12, 20 games in our collection, and we would play the same game over and over again and learn new strategies, just get deeper and deeper into a game? I mean, right now, you and I have this incredible, breadth of the hobby, but our depth, I mean, I want to go back and I want to play Through the Ages 100 times, right? I want to learn all the intricacies and the nuances of the games. But we don't do that. We just don't do that. So it's rewarding a different type of play, if that makes sense.
It does. It does make sense.
Don't hate on people that want to play CCGs and LCGs, Alex.
I'm not hating on anyone. I just don't like the model.
Okay. Perfect. Then avoid the model. You're good. You're good to go.
I do. I actively do.
Perfect. So that's my number 2, Legend of the Five Rings.
Number 1.
All right. My number 1 is in most respects, technically a 2016 game.
Oh no! Oh
yeah,
no!
But here's the thing: it wasn't widely available in the U.S. until 2017. This game showed up at BGG-Con. There were some copies you were able to play. I know our buddies from low player count loved this game so much that they ordered it ahead of time from France. They had it shipped from France to them, and this became available here in the U.S. It was either very late 2016 or very early 2017, and so I'm absolutely counting it as a 2017 game. And that game is The Colonists from Mayfair and Lookout Spiel. Whew, this game is amazing. So speaking of our friends from Low Player Count, when I had Travis Hill from Low Player Count on the podcast during your 14-week hiatus, Alex.
Yep.
This was what we reviewed. This is an unofficial Boxcars winner. I gave it a 6. Travis gave it a 6. This game is amazing. It is an Uwe Rosenberg style game in that there are resources and you're converting resources and you're spending those on various things. There is this spatial action selection mechanic where you have this little guy that you're moving around this map that gives you different action selection. There's a logistics component where you have to make sure that you have enough access to stuff in your warehouses. It is, in theory, or not in theory, in reality, like an 8 to 10 hour game if you're playing all 4 ages at a single go. That's crazy. That's a big commitment. And you can certainly play fewer ages and it can still be really fulfilling. Like, I'm convinced, Alex, that you would love the 70 to 80 minute age 1 and you would find it fairly fulfilling. And it's really solid. And that's all you play and you're done. You would like that. I think that at some point you would want to try the full game just to say that you've done it, because it's a type of game that you would like, but it's not something that you're going to be itching to play on a regular basis. I am certainly itching to play this on a regular basis, but the difficulty of getting it out is certainly there. But man, it is so good. It is such a good game. And I have something currently set up on my Duchess game table with the tabletop. I'm playing Descent solo with the Road to Legends app. And I think at some point I'm probably going to swap that out for The Colonists, because I'd love to just play this solo like 3 times over the next 2 months. Like, that just sounds awesome. I do like an age a night. Maybe it takes me about a week to finish all 4 ages. I don't know, but it's fantastic. It's great solo. It's great at 2 players. 4 players can kind of drag out a bit, but it's certainly an experience worth having. Man, it's really good. Ugh.
Now, here's my question. One, was the Climbers a consideration for your top 10 list?
It wasn't, but it's quite good. And I guess we're in that problem of, is it technically a 2017 game? I know Capstone just came out with their version this year, so I kind of discounted it.
And then also, if this was a top 10 new to you in 2017 games, in other words, games that were released previously but you just discovered this year, would Combat Commander Europe be your number 1 game of the year?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was on my top 10 list of all time at number, I think it was 7 or 9.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, it was lower half, but still. Okay. Yeah, those are the questions I had. Thank you for answering them.
You're welcome. So that's my number 1, The Colonists.
Excellent. Well, my number 1 should be fairly obvious, I think, at this point.
Yep.
Sean, what is it?
It's flip ships, flippity ships, flippity flop ships.
Yep, it's Flip Ships, the game about flipping and ships and ship flipping from Renegade Game Studios, who, if you have to say Renegade Game Studios, you typically say knocks it out of the park sometime in that sentence or soon after saying the word Renegade Game Studios, because oftentimes they do. Now, as folks know, for full disclosure, I worked at the Renegade booth at Gen Con, and I demoed the heck out of this for 3 days at Gen Con. And I will say this, demoing is not easy at a convention. You lose your voice, you're on your feet, you get exhausted doing it, and even in amongst all of that, Sean, I still never fell out of love with this game. I still suggest this thing regularly. I own a copy. I love that I own a copy. It is an incredible achievement to make a cooperative dexterity game that, even when folks say, I don't like dexterity games, it's not a mechanic I like, or it's not a type of game I enjoy, you say, give this one a try anyway, and they do, and more often than not, they'll say, oh man, that was actually really good. What I love about this game is not just the production. The art from Kwanchai Moria in this is stellar. I love the ambigram on the front of the box. I love just the feel. I do enjoy dexterity games from time to time, and I do enjoy the feel of flipping these ships. Like, the feel of that is very satisfying. But I love how they incorporate strategy as part of this, right? They give you opportunities to, I want to target these ships on the right because I have an ability targeted to that, or I need to target this ship close to us because that's going to do us a lot of damage, or it's going to free up this ship to run in and blow us up, or hey, I need to be attacking the mothership because we need to balance out enough hits in this game situation. I like that in a typical game, even someone who's not very good at this, there will be a moment or two where that person absolutely shines and saves the day. Everyone in a game of this almost always has a turn where they save the day. There are tense games. There are games where people can't bear to watch, or it comes down to one shot and you either win or lose on that one shot. It's designed perfectly for that tension. And so you combine the look, the feel. How many times I've played this game and still love it, haven't gotten sick of it, and it is a no-brainer number one for me. I had it on my top 10 of all time. It's definitely going to stay there. This is one that is firmly in my collection, and King Klenko did an amazing job designing this. Renegade did an amazing job producing this. I'm so happy this game's a thing. I'm excited for an expansion, and I love, because I repeat things when I'm very excited about something, Sean.
Yep.
But I'm not so manic about this one at this point because I've talked about it enough and demoed it enough. I really, really enjoy flip ships, and I hope folks give this one a try, even if this whole idea of dexterity, I don't know, turns you off. Give this one a look, give this one a shot. What I've noticed is an interesting trend with my list, Sean, by the way, is that I have a good amount of cooperative games on here. Fog of Love is pseudo-cooperative competitive. Magic Maze is cooperative. Codenames Duet is cooperative. And so it's interesting. I tend to like more of the cooperative flair of games, I guess. And I don't know why that is. I don't think it's always been that way. But for whatever reason, this one sunk its teeth into me and hooked on big time. So Flip Ship's my number one game of the year and has a nice solid place on my top 10 of all time.
Yeah, no, I knew it was going to be number one. Absolutely. And like you said, people should give it a shot. I mean, it's on both of our lists. It bookends our list. Your number one, my number 10. So it's a really solid game and a lot of fun for a dexterity game. Well, Alex, the Guild weighed in with some of their top games of the year. Kyle Kelly suggested Pandemic Legacy Season 2. Richie Turner had Hentes, which was on my short list. Steve O'Rourke, the name father, suggested Sagrada, which was on your list. The Mr. Sean, not me, even though my grandfather calls me Mr. Sean, Wasteland Express Delivery Service, which I actually just helped Matthew punch and organize his copy. Oh boy, a lot of stuff there. John Knost and Chris Gordy both liked Anachrony. Jonathan Dodd, a little bit of agreement with me, Azul. Matthew S., Card City XL, which I talked about a little bit, the Alban VR game.
Yeah, and so other number one games from the Guild. BJ from Board Game Gumbo, Near and Far, and his explanation for that is, I love storytelling games and games with great art, and this is Lockett's best game so far, and I agree. So, yeah.
Agree to disagree.
That's fine, but it's number 3 on my list, number 1 on his list, and we definitely have some agreement there. Both Daniel Newman and Evan came with Lisboa, which I thought was going to be higher on Sean's list, but it sits at a paltry 6th place, so I don't know my Sean well enough. Jimmy, DM90, suggested Santorini as his number 1 game of the year, and I don't think I've played that one, and I don't know where that one would fall. I hear it's actually pretty good and pretty interesting. Sylvain Lacroix with not an unexpected one, Gloomhaven. You figured that would be a number 1 on someone's list. That one has set BGG on fire with how many people just adore that game. Jesse Metcalf with some agreement with me with Baron Park, giving Baron Park some love as his number 1 game of the year. And Ian Kissel with a game that wasn't on my radar, and I'm not even sure was on your radar, Sean. 1754 Conquest, the French and Indian War. He had this to say, though, Sean. I'm curious what you think about this statement. I don't think it was a great year for Euros. There are some decent titles, but unless you got lucky and have a copy of Anachrony, I did not, or like Lacerda games, I don't think there was a lot great released this year, at least as far as Euros go. Do you agree with that one, Sean?
Well, here's the problem. The problem is that there's still a bunch of stuff from Essen that we're not seeing. That's the problem every year. And it's the problem where a lot of these great Essen titles, these Euro games, kind of get forgotten in these year-end lists because we just haven't had time to get them out yet. Looking at my list, I had Charterstone, I had Lisboa, and the Colonists. So maybe if you don't include the Colonists, I don't know. But I will say 1754 Conquest, the French-Indian War, was definitely on my radar.
Okay.
It's the Founding of America series from Academy Games. Yeah. Don't just presume things on my behalf, Alex. How dare you?
I'm stepping in it a lot today. I will say that I think Altiplano might have a shot at your top 10 list when it hits retail next year. So I think 2018 that's certainly on Sean's watch list if I had to guess. I'm trying to think of other Euros that were especially hot or especially interesting that were Essen releases that just haven't made their way over here. I'm sure there are plenty that just aren't coming to mind, but Altiplano for sure I think you're going to be in love with, Sean, just because it has that Orleans aspect to it.
The bag building.
Yeah, that does it for you. That scratches many itches of Sean's.
Yep.
Sean, having looked at this list, how do you evaluate 2017?
So like I kind of said earlier, I think it's a solid year. I think that once I've played Gloomhaven and Seventh Continent, I'm going to say, oh my goodness, this year is amazing. But I'm not there yet. Certainly some fantastic titles. L5R is a game that I absolutely love. The Colonists, it's a good year for lighter games for me. Flip Ships, Azul, Fox in the Forest, Codame's Duet. That's what, 4 games? 4 of my 10 games?
Yeah, that's a pretty good presence on your list for sure.
Yeah. That's certainly a little surprising. I've even got a co-op on there, Spirit Island. That's more of a heavier co-op. But looking at it, Spirit Island, the Ruhr, Lisboa, and the Colonists, also 4 heavy games. So like in heavy games, not heavier, but heavy games. So yeah, I think that's interesting. It's a good year. I don't want to get too hyperbolic about it. I just think of last year being Scythe and Terraforming Mars, Pandemic Legacy the year before, and they felt like, last year especially, just felt like a banner year. And again, I think it might feel that way with Gloomhaven and Seventh Continent rounding out a list eventually. So, what about you?
I'm trying to think back. So Scythe and Terraforming Mars were sort of the banner carriers for me for last year. Those games were absolutely unbelievably tremendous. I'm trying to remember the rest of the 2016 list.
Millennium Blades too.
Oh, Millennium Blades. Yeah, Millennium Blades was fantastic. And so certainly in terms of those big hitters, those ones that were like, oh my goodness, I'm blown away with how much I love this game. I think 2016 might have been a little bit better on that front. But if I'm looking at my list as a whole, man, there's a lot of maybe not spectacular, but really, really solid picks on there. And at the top end, I certainly, those top 2 for me are things I'm very, very enthusiastic about going forward, especially Fog of Love. I don't know if I got that across, Sean, how enthusiastic I'm about Fog of Love, which you need to get.
Did you like that?
Yeah, I did. A lot. I liked it a lot.
So, yeah, I can go back and look at my list. We kind of did a weird thing where we both recorded the episode and also did our top 10 on video for the YouTube channel. And so we didn't keep our list together like we normally do. That's kind of a behind the scenes thing. I do have my list from 2016. 10 was Feast for Odin, 9 was Role Player, 8 Oracle of Delphi, 7 Capital Lux, 6 Happy Salmon, 5 Arkham Horror LCG, 4 Great Western Trail, 3 Terraforming Mars, 2 Millennium Blades, and 1 was Scythe. So yeah, looking at last year to this year, I definitely feel like last year was a stronger year, but only because that top 3 really just kind of reinforced how amazing it was for me.
Yeah, I think there. I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's going to be on an ongoing basis more hits for me out of 2017. It's hard to say at this point, but I agree with you. The top end of 2016 was ridiculous compared to even to 2017.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our top 10 games of 2017. And of course, as one year ends, another is beginning, and there are going to be a lot of fantastic games coming out this year for sure. A lot of games I'm excited about. I think we'll probably take some time next episode to tell you about some of our most anticipated games that are supposed to be coming out in 2018. Kind of a look forward to couple with our look back this episode.
Before we go, though, we have the honorable mentions for this episode. We can't leave 2017 totally behind yet.
No, not yet. Let's do that. So BJ from Board Game Gumbo with our probably a runner-up, right? Was the Ducal Prime Dime because we're doing a top 10 list in Prime because apparently 2017 is a Prime number. I haven't checked the math out, but it's probably right.
I did that. I double-checked that.
Oh, good.
Trust me, I know what I'm doing. It's a Prime number. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Jesse Metcalf suggested Diez of Dice 2017, again referring to the number 10, which is a pretty common theme for the rest of this runner-up list.
And given that we've had both Sagrada and Azul on our list, maybe we should have picked Diez of Dice.
But we didn't. Sorry, Jesse.
Nope. Yep. All right. Good times. Blaine Miley suggested Dukahedron, kind of like Decahedron, right? Top 10. Dukahedron. I like it.
I dig it. Again, the 10 theme was strong with this one. Namefather Steve O'Rourke with Put Up Your Dukes 2017 edition, referencing the fact that there would be some differences between our lists. And actually, oddly enough, there maybe weren't as many as I was thinking. With Azul coming back on my list, there's, I see, 4 overlaps, and could have been 5. Fox and the Force was very close. So, actually, some more in common than I was expecting with this one. So, maybe not such a put up your dukes, but I like the name anyway.
And that's a reference to our initial review of Praetor, that episode, which we titled Put Up Your Dukes.
Indeed.
Deep cut, Alex. And then finally, the Mr. Sean. Again, not me, Mr. Sean, according to my grandpa, but a different the Mr. Sean suggested Dukes of D10. So more dice shenanigans.
And 10 shenanigans. Dice and 10. Which, in fairness, when we're doing a top 10 list of the year, we're not giving folks a lot to work off of as far as the naming goes. I promise you it'll be a little better next time.
You hope.
I hope. So that one's more on us. Y'all did the best with what you had. The Mr. Sean, by the way, I hope you post more name suggestions so we have more excuse to confuse Sean with the Mr. Sean. I love it.
I'm very easily confused, Alex.
And if anyone wants to start up a the Mr. Alex BGG account, I'm pretty cool with that too. But the 15% is strong and thriving, but I don't think we have a tribute account set up just yet.
And I don't think that's a tribute account either. So
yeah, I doubt that. Any case, let's pretend it is.
Okay.
All right.
Sure, why not? All right, well, that's going to do it then for episode 167, Dukulator 2017. Thanks again to Kyle Kelly for naming that. Until next time, we'll see you in 2018. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And Dukulator 2017.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on December 28th, 2017. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesofDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Tasty Minstrel Games and Arcane Wonders. You can check out all their awesome titles at PlayTMG.com and ArcaneWonders.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks in the new year. Until then, game on!